Hello everyone, this is IM Sagar Shah and today I'm taking you to Moscow for the Aeroflot Open, which is one of the strongest open tournaments in the world. Now 101 participants in the A group, but you have 39 players above the rating of 2600 and 76 players above the rating of 2500. It's a bliss for players who want to play against strong opponents, make their GM norms and just experience the highest quality of chess throughout the event. Now for India, it's great news because there are so many young talents who are playing there. You have Nihal Sareen, you have Gukesh, you have Pragnananda, you also have experienced guys like Shashikiran, Ganguly, and it's a great event. However, there's one player who I really want you to have a close look at, and that is Aravindh Chithambaram. He is 2600 rated, 2601, and he's the current reigning national champion of India. And yesterday in the second round, he played a fantastic endgame against Eltaj Safarli, who was rated 2681, to beat him. Now I'm going to use this game as a test for you. I want to see if you can answer my questions. It's going to be a little different and I've prepared very well for today. So what I would like you to do is take your chess set, lay it besides you, open it and set up this position right now over here that I have put up. And as we go through this game, try to go through these moves. Now if you can't get a chess set, then try to think about every move. Do not take it lightly, because I sincerely believe that if you want to improve as a chess player, then you must put your brain to work. Okay, so king c3 was the last move by white. His king was on d2 here. The rook landed on h2 and Aravindh moved his king to c3. He has the white pieces here and Eltaj over here pushed the knight back with b6. Now Aravindh took on e6, fe6 and now pushed the pawn to e5. As you can see, the pawn on c6 is now hanging, and that's the reason why in this position black went knight d5. After knight bishop takes, rook takes, king takes, we come to an important crossroad. The question is, what should you recapture on d5 with the e pawn or with the c pawn? So pause the video and try to think, what would you do here? Well, I hope that you were able to get this right, because it's the start of the variation and if you make a wrong decision here, you're already lost. So the most natural move is to take on d5 with the pawn. However, this doesn't give you any counterplay because there's no way to create a passed pawn on the queen side, and all that white king has to do is run over to the king side, pick up the g5 pawn and win the game. So black king is extremely slow and there is absolutely no way to stop the white king. So therefore taking on d5 with the c pawn is a mistake. So you must take e takes d5. Now the next question is, what should white be thinking? What do you think is the evaluation of this position? It looks so very pretty for white with his protected passed pawn on e5, but black has the ability to create his own passer with c5. Hence the white king cannot now just go freely roam around and take the g5 pawn, because c5 would come in. So Aravindh over here, thinking about this, goes for the move b4, and I think this is a good move. Just let's try to have a look at the variation after king d3, king c7. Now the question is, what happens after the move c5? So I want you to think here, to pause this video and try to tell me what would happen if Eltaj would play c5 here. This is not game, because in the game king d3 was not played, but still let's have a look. Okay, I hope that you were able to identify that creating two passed pawns is what white should do. And so after dc bc, the right move is b4, and a very powerful move, because after b4 either black has to take cb ab and then the d5 pawn falls, or he plays c4 and then after king d4 the e pawn is a passer, and after a4, b5, a5, b6 you have passers on both the sides. And in endgames, usually two passers, on e and a file is much stronger than these two connected passers in the center. So in that sense, c5 would be just a mistake here, but he could play king to c7, and after king e3, finally you must break with c5 now, because now the king is quite near. dc, bc, b4, you take ab, and now king comes in time to d7. Now this is very important, because if you go to king with the king to d4, this is a blunder. After king e6, this is a lost position. There are exactly two tempos left on the board. So if white plays b5, then g4 is winning for black and white is out of moves. And if white plays g4, then a6 is winning for black. This is fantastic variation. I like it very much. So here actually, instead of going for king d4, white must play king d3 and then king e7. Both the players have to jump around these two mined squares, M-I-N-E-D, mined squares. The one who steps in first is the one who loses. So e6 and d4 are such mined squares. Okay, that was an instructive line. But in the game, b4 was played, not king d3. And after king c7, Aravindh played a4. Now you can see how Aravindh is posing small little problems for his opponent. And I would like you to pause the video once again. Think a bit, what would you do here as black? Well, if you are often confused when such a random position is put in front of you and you are asked what to do and you have no clue whatsoever, then the very good idea would be to actually give the move back to the opponent. For example, in this position, if you gave the move back to white, you will realize that white wants to play the move b5 here. And if he gets the move b5, then you are gone, because after cb, ab, this one pawn just dominates these two pawns. So you have everything under control, and now the king can safely walk over here and pick up the g5 pawn. On the other hand, if you played the move c5, as we have already seen, then after dc, bc, a5, you have a passer here, and you're going to play b6 and get a passer. So these two passers will spell black's doom in the position. Once you realize that b5 is a real threat, then you are in a position to actually do something about it, and you play the move a5. This is highly prophylactic move, and you understand that chess works in very simple ways if you have these techniques in your mind. That if I can ask what my opponent wants to do and understand it, I can prevent it. So now in this position, b5 makes no sense, because after cb, ab, the a5 pawn is a passer and white king cannot move to the king side. In the game, Aravindh took ba, ba, and then went king d3. King came to d7, and now king e3, king e6. And here white played a cheeky little move, king to e2. He wants to play, if black goes king f5, he wants to play king f3 and get the g4 square. Now this is nothing wrong with it. I have a very nice variation which shows that black can still draw the game. It goes something like king e6, king g4, c5. Finally you have to do it, otherwise you just lose the g5 pawn. dc, king e5, king takes g5, d4, push the pawn, king d6, king f4, and it seems as if white is the one who's clearly better because he has the outside passer here. But after king d5, g4, king e5, g5, king f5, white does win the a5 pawn, but black king is just in time for this crucial c8 square when the rook pawn cannot win the game. So this is a very touch and go variation. I like it very much to just show that even if black wastes a move, he is fine in this position. However, Eltaj was very alert. He played the move c5 here. Now after c5, d into c5, king into e5. Now let me just go through the entire game for you. And this is where my question will come next, and this is a little tricky question. So after king e3, d4, king d3, king d5, c6, king into c6, king d4, king d6, king c4, black resigned the game, because if you play king to c6 now, stopping king b5, then I go g4 and something has to fall. King d6, king b5, if king b6, king d5. That's it. Now I showed you the end of the game, and this is the reason why, because I gave this position to Amruta in the morning, and this is very interesting because I gave her from here and I showed her all the moves and I asked her, where do you think did black go wrong, because this is a drawn position. And she said c5. C5 here that is played looks like the mistake. Well, I am not so sure about it, and this is why I am giving you this position. I'm going to play through the moves once again so you remember them, and you have to pause the video and tell me which is the point where black went wrong, and that's, I think, a good test. So c5, dc, king e5, king e3, d4, king d3, king d5, c6, king into c6, king d4, king d6, king c4, and here Eltaj resigned. This is a lost position. Okay, so once you are done through this, you can restart the video and listen to the explanation. I hope you tried your best, and this is of course very difficult because I gave you nearly 6 moves to think about. Never easy. However, this is a much more interesting challenge than I asking you on every move what should be done. Anyway, c5 was a very good move because after dc, king e5, king e3, everything is under control. d4 is the correct move. Now if you did think of g4 here, you would be mistaken, because after king d3, d4, c6, king d6, king takes, and you get the opposition, and this is lost. Either king comes to b5 or d5. There was one more move which Amruta suggested, was king to e6, but after king d4, I think this position is already lost because g4. Now you might have things okay here, but c6 looks great, and after this king d5, it seems as if you take the opposition, but this is useless because I just go king c5 and pick up this pawn. So this is just lost. So d4 has to be played here, and after king d3, king came to d5, c6 was played. This is again forced. There is no other move. You can't lose the c5 pawn. c6, and this is where the critical mistake occurred in the game. I hope you were able to note it, that king into c6 is the mistake, because the right move here would be very surprising move, king d6. You don't take the pawn, and the reason is also very nice, that after king into d4, you now want to take it, and some might say, but you're giving up the opposition. Well, the most important thing here is that there is a spare tempo on the queen side. Either side can make a move, and when that move is made, you take the opposition. So if white plays g4 here, now you get the opposition. While if you look at the game, he took on c6, he has the opposition now, but now white will go g4, and that is game over. So this is a case where not taking the opposition, you have to lose the opposition so that you gain the opposition, because there's a waiting move in the position. Chess is sometimes very tricky in that sense. I think that in king d6 would have been seen by Safarli, but he was confused that king c4, still white is not jumping on the d4 square. If white jumps on d4 square, black can jump on the c6 square. But white plays king c4. However, here comes the next pretty move. I'm not going to ask you, but if you would like to solve it, then pause the video here. Yes, the right move is king to c7. Beautiful move. The king goes back, and it's going to jump on c6 only when white takes on d4, and white has to take now. King takes d4, and after king c6 it's a draw. So c6, you mustn't take the pawn, and this was the key idea, but Eltaj took it, and after this he had to resign the game. Pawn endgames are tricky, and I hope that you learnt a bit from this. Also, do not take anything for granted in chess, because if there is a capture which is obvious, try to think, I know that this is obvious, but are there more options? If at every position you think what are the possibilities for me, and then you choose your move, it's less likely that you will miss something like king d6 in this position, which is so pretty. Also king c4, king c7. I like this position a lot, and I hope you did too.